we're dealing with questions about existential uncertainty. I suppose we're dealing with vows. You can make a vow to be a Nazir, and you can make your vow conditional on something. But what if that something is completely unknowable? And it's almost like the Schrodinger's cat question. You've got a cat in a box, and maybe it's alive and maybe it's dead. You've got no way of knowing whether the cat is alive or dead. If you open the box, actually you kill it. So there's really, really no way of knowing whether the cat is alive or dead. And the Mishnah brought the example of a group of people actually, walking along the road, and they see this guy coming towards them. And they say, oh yeah, I'm a Nazir if he is Fred. Okay, but we don't know, we can't tell whether he's Fred or not. And then this group of people, they start talking to one another. And they say, oh yeah, it's almost as if somebody joins the group and he says, look, I'm a Nazir if one of you is a Nazir, or I'm a Nazir if none of you are a Nazir. Or if he points at two people, if both of you are Nazirim, or if all of you are Nazirim. All this stuff is stuff he doesn't know about. And by the way, Beit Shammai, who are strict about vows made in doubt and Nazirut made in doubt, say they're all Nazirut. All these vows count. And Beit Shammai, well, in the fifth Mishnah, Beit Shammai says something rather cryptic. Only those whose words are not fulfilled are Nazirim. The Gemara tries to amend this to those words who are fulfilled are Nazirim. In other words, Beit Hillel seems to want to say, look, only if the guy really is Fred are these people Nazir. And Rabbi Tarfon is really strict about dubious vows, and he says, look, none of them are Nazirim. So that's the fifth Mishnah, and that's essentially where we left off yesterday. But the next Mishnah, the sixth Mishnah, and the conclusion of the chapter just picks up on these ideas. And the Mishnah, first of all, really, it's a great, we really are with Schrodinger's cat. The Mishnah asks straight away, Hirtia la'acharav, he turned around. So this guy's coming along the road, we don't know if he's Fred or not, and he turned around and went off. So we're never going to find out whether he's Fred, because he's disappeared and he's not coming back. And the Mishnah the Mishnah begins by ruling a not Nazir. He's not a Nazir. So in other words, if you never find out the answer to the puzzle, then the person who swore the vow is not a Nazir. And Rabbi Shimon, who is strict on doubtful Nazirut, has what's the expression? Better not. He has sort of like a compromise approach. Somebody will say, look, can I say a bracha of Shechianu over a particular, significant wedding? And you go to a dayan and they'll say, better wear a new tie. Yeah. Sort of be safe. Be safe. Yeah, be safe. So Rabbi Shimon takes the be safe approach. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Yomar. So Rabbi Shimon says, look, what you should say is this. Im haya ki dvarai hareni nazir chova. If the guy really was Fred, if it was as I predicted, and the guy really was Fred, I'm really a Nazir out of obligation. Ve'im la hareni nazir nadavar. If he wasn't Fred, I'm a Nazir I'm just a voluntary Nazir. I'm just going to be a Nazir. How does this help Rabbi Shimon? Well, Rabbi Shimon, he doesn't want to be completely strict on the Nazirut with let's say, vows which aren't quite certain, because we're going to end up by bringing korbanot to the temple. We're going to bring sacrifices to the temple. And we can't bring a korban Nazir if we're not a Nazir. So we have to be strict one way or the other. On the other hand, if we're obligated to bring the sacrifice, we can't not bring it. So Rabbi Shimon wants to get this person into a position where actually he can bring the sacrifice. He can bring the sacrifice either way, and it's not wasted. Essentially, that's the better not approach. Just like wearing a new tie under the chuppah and then saying Shechianu. The Mishnah then goes on to a situation where we've got Well, anyway, the Mishnah is now going to just expand the range of uncertainty. Rather than having a group of people, and one of them might be Fred, we're going to have this animal called the koi. Now, we learned about a koi in the end of the second chapter of Bikurim. A koi is an animal doesn't seem to exist today. It's some kind of wild, maybe it's some kind of wild ibex. But the rabbis aren't sure whether it's domesticated or wild. A koi is an animal. And actually, the rabbis say in Bikurim that it's got some aspects of a domesticated animal and some aspects of a wild animal, and some that are like both and some are like neither. So in the Mishnah and Bikurim, they go through, I mean, there's interesting stuff there about gender as well, but they go through this koi and they sort of analyze out whether it's domesticated or wild or both or neither. Okay, so our Mishnah now says, Ra'ah es ha-koi. Someone saw a koi. Now, we don't have a koi really today, but they had clearly had koi in the time of the Mishnah. Ra'ah ha-koi, so he saw a koi, and he said, Hareni Nazir shezeh chaya. I'll be a Nazir if it's a wild animal. Maybe he doesn't realize this is a koi. He just sees this animal. Well, anyway, he says, I'll be a... And then someone else says, there are going to be 6 of these statements. Maybe there are 6 people here. Yeah, I think there are probably 6 people here. So it's a group, maybe the same group, actually, the salt Fred. So he sees the coin. He says, I'm going to be a Nazir if it's a wild animal. And someone else says, Hareni Nazir she'ein zeh chaya. I'm going to be a Nazir if it's not a wild animal. And the third guy says, Hareni Nazir shezeh behema. I'll be a Nazir if it's domesticated. And the fourth guy says, Hareni Nazir she'ein zeh behema. I'll be a Nazir if it's not domesticated. And the fifth guy says, Hareni Nazir shezeh chaya uvehema. I'll be a Nazir if it's wild and domesticated. You see, we're working through the categories of the koi here. And then the sixth guy says, Hareni Nazir she'ein zeh lo chaya velo behema. I'll be a Nazir if it's neither a wild beast nor a domesticated beast. So we go through all 6 possibilities. And then, unaccountably, I wonder whether this is some kind of ancient scribal error in the Mishnah, because unaccountably, we then repeat the conversation in a couple of Mishnayot back. Remember, these 2 guys joined the group and they said, look, I'm a Nazir, if one of you's a Nazir and such, and we're going to repeat this whole conversation. Somebody joins the group and he says, Hareni Nazir, Shechad become Nazir. I'm a Nazir if one of you is a Nazir. Or he says, or someone else says, She'ein echad became Nazir, that none of you are Nazir. Again, we got these conflicting possibilities. Share kulchem Nazirim, that you're all Nazirim. Share shneichem Nazirim, that 2 of you are Nazirim. And the Mishnah here rules harei chulam Nazirim. They are all Nazirim. Now, with a koi, we can sort of understand that because a koi is a multifaceted animal, and it can somehow simultaneously be both domesticated and wild, and both domesticated and neither. It's got all these characteristics. So we can see, Harei Hulam Nazirim, they're all Nazirim. We can see that works somewhat with the koi if we think it can fit into all of these categories simultaneously, right? It's difficult to see how the group fits into all the categories simultaneously, unless we say that this Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Shimon. Remember, Rabbi Shimon says, look, effectively, you need to behave like you're a Nazir. You say, okay, if my words are fulfilled, I'm going to be an obligatory Nazir. And if my words are not fulfilled, I'm going to be a voluntary Nazir. But somehow I'm going to get myself into a situation where I can bring the sacrifices without them being, so to speak, is the word wasted? Yeah, I can legally bring those sacrifices.